My name is Joshua, and I am the Tribune. When we look at the world stage right now, there is not one human partnership that I can even think of that is boldly working with Jesus Christ and doing such wonders and such magnificent works that even Satan's children all over the world are asking, who is their God and who are they working with? Because I need to get on board with them and what they're doing, and I need to get on board with their God so that I can do wonders and get to know this awesome God just like they do. The reason why we don't see this on the global stage is because when God starts forging these relationships together and bringing them together, people run away from these relationships because they don't realize the price that they're going to have to pay when God starts moving them forward to prepare them for their purpose together. Now, when I say God-ordered relationships, I'm not just talking about marriage. I'm talking about friendships. I'm talking about business partners. I'm talking about any sort of relationship you can think of that God could work through to do His purpose, which means there's an infinite amount of relationships that can be used to put in this category that I'm talking about. So today, we're going to be talking about the price, the unique price that is to be paid when God brings together relationships for His purpose that people don't warn you about. And if it's because they don't warn you about these things, you do not recognize them. And I'm specifically talking to the upcoming generations because when God orders these relationships and you see the price that comes with it, though it's worth it, the price is worth it. But when you see this come, you will know that it's God ordered and you need to stick with it so you can get the treasure and the benefits that come out of that relationship with God and before God so that you can complete His purpose to the highest degree possible in your life and help the other person do the same. So the first kind of price that is paid, that must be paid, is really not a price, it's training. Because God is always training His people. And He also trains people in teams. It's not just you and God all the time. He trains you with people. And one of the things we have to get trained on together is how to deal with spiritual warfare and attack. We need to be able to discern satanic attack. So what God will do is He will allow direct attack to come on your relationships that He has actually ordered. Now, the difference between an unbeliever dealing with strife in a relationship and what I'm talking about in these divine order relationships is it's very difficult to see where the attack is coming from. The attacks are so strategic and so tailored to the relationship and so tailored to press and hit certain pressure points on each person that the enemy has studied, that it's impossible to know where the attacks are coming from and how it's being brought to you, even if you're just dealing with two people. Because you need the Holy Spirit to give you wisdom and discernment in order to discern these attacks. Because you would never think that this person really understands where they just hit. And Satan, he hits places where you don't even realize that that is a problem that you have. He hits places in your heart that you didn't even know you had a problem with, and you didn't even know you had that wound. And he presses and digs into that. That is another reason why it's very hard to detect these kind of attacks. So because it's hard to detect the satanic attack, we immediately blame the other person. And we think it's the person who is attacking us, and we think it's the person who is hitting this place that we don't even know. Wow, I don't even know that, I didn't even know I had that place in me that could be hit so hard and so brutally. So we attack back, and we blame, and we fight, without ever realizing that the other person that's being used doesn't even know they're being used, and it's really not even them, it's Satan. It's Satan causing the confusion. It's Satan causing the miscommunication. It's Satan causing the perception to be off so that that other person feels like you're attacking them. So what we do with these kind of attacks is we need to go to God. We must be able to put God on speakerphone and listen to him together so that he can explain to us what's happening, what's being hit in our spirit, what's being hit in the other person's spirit, what kind of wounds and problems we have inside of ourselves that Satan is using without us even realizing it against each other and against ourselves. And then we need to team up as a partnership, whether it's 2, 3, 4, 5 people, it doesn't make a difference. And we need to fight the enemy. We don't need to fight each other because God has brought us together to work together. We need to work as a team to accomplish his purpose. So God will teach a team spiritual warfare. He will teach a partnership how to fight the enemy. When you see this, you need to know there's nothing wrong. Don't run away from this kind of training with another person because you don't realize that God's allowing it. First, you need to go to God. That's why we always have to go to God first. Because he will explain to you, this person is actually not for you. I didn't bring this relationship, and this is why you're having these problems. It's not even you. It's that you're in the wrong place. But in this situation, he would say this. I actually brought this relationship, and it's not even them. That's the problem. And it's not you. The problem is the enemy. And this is how you fight it individually and together. And the reason why you need God on speakerphone is because it clears the air. God clears the air with his people that he's brought together. And the way you know God has brought this person or these people into your life is that they really want to hear God's instruction and God's word over their emotions. They are willing to put their emotions aside when there's some kind of conflict and say, why don't we seek God about this first? If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. If God says I'm wrong and he actually gives me confirmation and proves it, and I can actually listen to the Holy Spirit and have wisdom, then I will take responsibility for this because he's trying to make me a better person. He's trying to make me a better child to him and a better servant to his purpose so I can be better for you. And if it's you, I know you'll take responsibility for it so that we can be better partnership so we can actually work for God's purpose. And if it's the enemy, I know we will both see that too and we will fight. This is what looks like horrible strife and horrible problems, but really it's God allowing you to build a partnership and a relationship where you can actually war together, and he allows Satan to do this, and he will teach you how to battle. Now, the second kind of attack that comes against God-ordered relationships, that is actually a price that must be paid, is when God is establishing the relationship and he orders things that are very difficult because he has his agenda and he knows what's best for everybody involved. And Satan comes in between those instructions. He actually circumvents the order and changes your perspective on it so that you think that what God's doing in your life is actually a satanic thing. This is a price that must be paid because we have to learn how to discern when God is actually giving us a difficult order and he's doing something that we might not like, but it's for everybody's best good. The first way that this happens that we need to speak on today is we must know that when God brings relationships that he has ordered, one of the things he expects in that relationship is for us to sharpen each other. Now, people understand this, that, iron sharpens iron, and they understand the cliche, but they really don't understand what that means. What that means is that God will show each person something that the other party, the other person is dealing with, something they don't see in their heart or in their spirit that needs to be corrected. And he will have that person help that the person who is in danger in their spirit get that corrected. He will order them to be the surgeon on the other person's heart, and he will use them as a tool to reveal things to them. Now, this is extremely difficult for both parties because the person who is on the operating table, they might not even have known that they needed a surgery. And the person being the tool might not even realize that they are being used as God's surgeon. And this comes in many different situations. And by the way, God does not use anesthesia. He does not use it because we need to feel all the pain so we could remember what the lesson is that he's trying to teach us about our spirit and about our heart so we can move forward in power and we can actually help other people. So the person on the table who is being worked on, that person is in excruciating pain and they don't even realize they're on the operating table. So they look at the person and say, you're afflicting me. And the person is saying, no, I'm actually doing God's work and I see something that he's saying that I need to address on his behalf and I need to help you with it. So can you imagine a surgeon doing an operation with no anesthesia, nothing? And the surgeon is trying to fix and mend things and do his job or do her job. And the person on the table is fighting. They're yelling, they're screaming. Part of it's out of pain, part of it's out of anger and frustration. They don't even know what's wrong with them. They didn't even see the symptoms. And God is telling the surgeon, okay, now just ignore that. You need to make sure to sew here, cut here, sew here, remove this. And while that's happening, the person who is being the surgeon on the other end, that person is actually having to deflect what the person who is going through the surgery is actually trying to attack them because they think they're trying to hurt them. So then the surgeon also has to protect themselves too. And you can't, when you're a surgeon, you cannot get in arguments with the person on the table who's on the operating table. You cannot do that. So in this situation, the enemy comes in and tries to trick everybody. He tells the person on the table, this person, okay, the surgeon is actually someone trying to afflict you. That is a satanic messenger that I've sent, and he is actually hurting you and trying to afflict you. You need to fight him. And then he tells the surgeon, now this person on the table, they are so messed up and so screwed up, God possibly cannot have you help this person. And in fact, look, they're attacking you. They're not even seeing that God's the one pointing something out in their heart, and they're attacking you. And now, if we both listen to Satan, these two parties, we are now at conflict with each other. We even stop listening to God. We're just fighting. The surgeon has the scissors and has the knife, and we're just cutting away. The other person's screaming, yelling, trying to punch the surgeon. There's so much going on. So this is Satan's indirect attack in what God has put in place and ordered for everybody's greatest good, which is the person who is getting operated on will come under God's surgery and be able to actually see what God has mended in their heart and mended in their spirit and actually improved in them. They will learn how to perform surgery on themselves so they can actually be God's surgeon for other people. And the person who is doing the surgery actually learns better how to hear God, not just for themselves, but for somebody else. And they're operating humility because God will say, do not fight. Do not fight this person. This person is for you. You are for them, and I'm for both of you, and you both need to work together. So, if we do not understand how this works, that Satan will come in between this, and he will actually try to skew everybody's perspective, then we will lose out on God's training for purpose. Because God puts everybody through surgery and even asks certain people to be surgeons for him in order to practice being a surgeon on the global stage with global problems and to know how to listen to him in a war zone where we are actually getting shot at, but we have to ignore the bullets, ignore the explosions, and we have to go with God directly to the problem. And we need to be so calculated and so precise with our tools, which are our gifts and talents, that we can fix the problem that God's pointing to with us. And we can move forward and hit it at the root. Because God always deals with the core of the problem. He ignores all symptoms. So a good example for this situation where we have a surgeon to somebody who's getting operated on, that God has ordered and Satan comes in between, something could happen in a conversation, for example, and the person's bringing a problem to you. But when you look at that problem, God's telling you, no, that's not the problem. The problem is Satan has some strings up here on this person, and I need you to cut the strings for them. I need to use you to snip the cord so that Satan can stop using the thing that's in their hand to afflict them. But when the person is ignoring what's in the hand and really looking at the strings, which will actually, once they're snipped, they'll fix the thing that's in the person's hand, that person really feels like they're not being listened to. When really God is saying, no, listen to this person. Look at what's in their hand, but I'm going to show you the higher principle. And this comes with the price of the first indirect attack of the enemy, which is we have to learn how to listen to God over the God-ordered relationships that he brings in our lives. Even if they're upset, even if they're hurt, even if they think like you're not listening, but really you're listening to God. If you're listening to God, then you are actually listening to that person on the highest level. And the person who has that symptom in their hand, you should be listening to the Holy Spirit at all times as much as possible, and he will teach you this. To say, okay, what's in my hand? This is upsetting me. But he's using this person to actually look higher so that everything gets fixed. This is training for purpose. The second big, huge attack that comes, that Satan comes in between and tries to ruin perspectives when God has ordered something that needs to be done, is when God brings divine relationships and divine partnerships. He starts connecting people. Something that nobody talks about is that with those connections comes God's severance packages for other relationships that are connected to all parties. It doesn't matter who they are, how much you think they love you, how much you love them. These people, God will severance certain relationships as you move into place with his divine partnerships. This comes in many different situations. It could be a parent, it can be a best friend, it could be some other family member or relative. God will say, this person is gone. They are not supposed to be around you right now, especially. While I'm connecting you with my ordered partnerships, I will also remove certain people you think will always be around. Because I need to make sure that the incubation stage is done correctly. And I know that you will not forge the proper relationship that I have ordered and the depth that I need for my mission and my purpose with certain people around. So he will start cutting people away. And it happens fast. And it happens very abruptly. And it's painful. And God knows it's painful, but you always have to remember it's for the highest good of everybody, even the people he's cutting away. Because if they're not cut away, then you will not forge the relationship that he's ordered properly, and then you will not step into your purpose. And guess how many people that will affect? God only knows how many people that would affect if you don't step into this. And on the other end, he already knows how many people will get affected across the world if you do. Now, what is the price that must be paid here? Well, the first price is that you have people chopped off of your life, and it hurts. It's like chopping off limbs. But what happens? What does the enemy do in this situation? The enemy comes and tries to convince both parties that they are not supposed to be together before God, because if God brought this relationship together and God ordered this partnership, then there would be total peace and harmony between all parties and all people connected to the relationship, and everything would be wonderful. That's absolute lie. It's not true. Because God brings separation. God actually says in his word that he does not come to the world to bring peace. He comes to bring division. He comes to draw a line in the sand and to say, listen, are you going to serve me or them? If they disagree with what I'm telling you, who are you going to follow? Me or your loved one? And you have a choice. And they have a choice. But one thing you have to know is that God gives all of these people a chance. He will come to them and say, this is what I'm doing. What happens is these people try to oppose you. They try to oppose him. Because when they oppose you and you're working for God, they are opposing God directly. Which means they have to be removed. And this is what Satan comes to tell you, is that cannot be God. God would never do that. God's about just uniting everything, making everything wonderful, smoothing everything over. Everybody's going to get along perfectly, and everybody's going to get to stay. Because that's the best thing, isn't it? No, that's actually the worst thing in many situations. So what happens is when God brings two people together, or a group of people together, and he starts building a team, and he starts excluding people, you think it's not God. And then you leave what God's building. And with you leaving what God's building, you actually leave your purpose. You leave your highest form of yourself, because we need other people to supplement our gifts for God's purpose, which he knows, and this is why he does it like this. This is so foolish when people do this, that it's just like trying out for a basketball team. And when you try out, you make this amazing team. And the coaches say, I choose you and you and you. But your best friend doesn't make it. Your best friend is not on the team. But this team is going to win powerful tournaments. This team is going to be the best ever. And you decide, I'm going to go with my friend. I'm going to leave the team because the coaches said they're not good enough, because they didn't practice, and they don't understand that they have to have a certain level to be on this team. This is just as stupid as that if you just said, I'm just going to leave the team and forfeit my spot because this person got cut. Nobody does that. Now, what is the solution to advance through the price, all these prices and these hefty and heavy and weighty things that must be paid in order to have the treasure that comes with God's ordered relationships? How you advance through this is you have to make sure that you understand why God brought you two or you three or you five together. What is his mission on why he brought you two together? The mission tells you what the enemy is going to be attacking. And many times you don't have to fight the enemy. You just have to complete the mission. You have to stay focused on what he wants to complete and what he wants to accomplish in your guys' life and through the relationship and the partnership that he's established. And through that, you both and you all need to make sure that you seek his wisdom, his discernment, his guidance, so that you can put him on speakerphone and he can always explain publicly what's happening and what the mission is and keep everybody on track. This is how you deal with the price of God's ordered partnerships. We must always remember that God has the highest agenda possible for every person. So, through this difficult process where you're bleeding and you're in pain, you have to know that the blood that is just seeping out of you is for a deep purpose. And the purpose is higher than you can even imagine. And you are going to want to stay in touch and move forward with the relationships and the partnerships that God has ordered for your purpose completion. At all costs, you should protect these relationships. So when you see all these difficult things come, and I know this has been a lot that has been laid out, but you will see it all. But when you see these things arise in your life and you see that God has ordered these relationships for you, and he gives confirmation, by the way, he always confirms these relationships. So don't think that you won't have confirmation. That's another thing that gets you through. Confirmation. He will give you wonders and signs to make sure that you know he brought this. But when you see these hard things come in the divine relationships that he has ordered, know that the enemy is attacking you because you two or you three or you 20 are so powerful that he knows he has to do extra work to try to split up the agenda and make sure that you guys cannot work together. This is why it's important to know what God is asking you to do to connect. Because this is the only way to fight the enemy and make sure you pass the tests with God so that you can advance in your divine partnerships. The rewards are unimaginable. And in the future, in this coming era, we will see many, many, many relationships and partnerships like this that God has ordered. And they've come all the way through the process, and you will see the fruits of it. But you must understand the price that must be paid with advancing in these God-ordered partnerships. Hail Jehovah.